Welcome to Ask China, a special series focusing on important subjects related to the Chinese political system. In today's episode, we'll look at a topic that never fails to capture international attention, China's defense policy. According to newly released data, the growth rate of China's defense budget will be lowered to 7.5% in 2019 from last year's 8.1%. The budget is mostly used for advancing defense and military reforms, supporting military training, modernizing equipment, and improving the welfare of service personnel. China's People's Liberation Army has also participated in 24 peacekeeping missions overseas, dispatching almost 40,000 peacekeeping military personnel. China's share of the UN peacekeeping budget was raised from around 10% to 15% last December, making China the second largest contributor, only after the United States in the world. How should we interpret these numbers? How are people in China and also in other countries reacting to these numbers? What contribution has China already made to safeguarding world peace and stability, and what missions might China be looking ahead? For more, I'm pleased to be joined by Xu Hui, Major General and Commandant of the International College of Defense Studies at the National University of the People's Liberation Army. This series will be aired both on CGTN's new media platform as well as on TV. The main idea is for our guest in the studio to answer questions collected from our viewers. Major General Xu, let's first take a look at one question coming from a friend by the name of Roy Manto Chen on the Q&A website Quora. The question goes, the U.S. military budget is 3 times bigger than China, so how can the U.S. scare of China? I guess that means, how can the U.S. be scared of China?
I'm wondering whether or not the U.S. is really scared, since they have the largest and strongest military in the world. Just as the questions mentioned, their military budget is 4 times bigger than China. But I think they're really concerned about China and take it as an issue, not only today, it's for years. I think one of the reasons that they take China as a competitor or even a kind of potential adversaries, and this country is very big. There's a very big differences between China and other major powers in history, and also we are number 2 now in terms of economy, in terms of GDP. So Americans always pay close attention, keep an eye on number 2, since they are number 1. Just as the former President Obama said, we are second, we're never second to nothing. So they want to keep number 1 position forever.
Maybe making an enemy out of an enemy of China, possibly.
Some argues they need an enemy to, implement their foreign policies and justification of their military budget, and so a lot of reasons, but I think it's really not necessary for Americans to think in that way.
Yeah. Let's look at China's military budget in its own right. I mean, as I said, this year the growth rate for military budget is 7.5% lower than last year's 8.1%. The total amount is $177 billion US dollars. That's according to a draft budget report to the MPC. Why is China spending less? Why is the growth rate decreasing?
It's a very interesting question. Whenever China's budget increases higher, this, oh, why you increase so big? And then we decrease a little bit, oh, why you decrease? So always take a very special, approach towards China's military budget. I think to any country, how much the budget it depends on the national security needs and their evaluation of the security environment, and also depends on their military, on their economic capabilities. I think from these 3 elements we can think it's appropriate for China. It's not necessary for all the way have a very high increase. We don't want to build a so-called seeking for number 1 in military budget. Only when we think it's necessary for us to follow the policy of active defense. I think that's okay.
Does China not want to spend more on its military budget to catch up to what the U.S. is doing?
The purpose of military is not for construction. It's for destroy, for fighting. So to my understanding, personally, the lesser the better. Not necessarily to spend too much money is a waste on that. I think if it meets the needs, as I said, of your national security, and also today, since China become #2 in economy and getting closer and closer to the center of the global stage, and the international community have a very high expectation on China. So in that regard, we also need to provide more and more public goods for maintaining security. So we need moderately expanding our military budget. Majority of the weaponry we have today, is older systems. We need to, renew them. And so we need a certain degree of increase of military budget.
Okay.
I think that's understandable, appropriate.
All right. Let's take a look at a question given by a viewer from the Philippines. Let's take a look at this.
How could they ensure that the territorial sovereignty of other neighboring Asian countries will be secured?
Since China has some kind of disputes with our neighboring countries, also draw the eyebrow of the major media of the international community, and to see specifically Americans pay close attention on China's disputes with other countries. But China's policy towards resolving the disputes is quite clear and is 100% consistent with the UN Charter. That is, sovereignty should not be invaded. And
that means for China and for other countries as well?
Both the same. Okay, that's one principle. The other is the settlement should be in terms of peace. Peaceful means to settle the territorial disputes other than using force. That's clearly written in the UN Charter. As a member of that, and China strictly follow that principle. And for those disputes we cannot resolve it very quickly, we have, policy, we call it sharing disputes for common development. I think that kind of policy is very, very important. To my understanding, it played a fundamental important role in Asia-Pacific in maintaining peace and prosperity in this region, given the reality that we have a lot of disputes not only between China and other countries, also among the members like ASEAN. So if we follow that principle in the past, 4 decades, we maintained the peace given the disputes.
Well, earlier this month, the month of March, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visited Manila, where he offered assurance to the Filipino side under the U.S.-Philippine Mutual Defense Treaty by saying China's island building and military activities in the South China Sea threaten Philippines' sovereignty, security, and therefore economic livelihood, as well as that of the United States. First of all, why is he doing this now?
It's really very interesting. I think if we want to find the correct answer, we have to go to Pompeo to ask him why, in this time of peace and stability in this region, and he coming to here and talk something like that. Actually, it's not only coming to Philippines. He have traveled around. It's through a shuttle diplomacy to different areas and try to, say something bad about China. I think it's not appropriate. And as to why they do so, I think quite clear for the international community. They didn't play the role as they expected, and a lot of people make fun of him. It's really a troublemaker.
So you think the United States will not achieve its goal of maybe driving a wedge between China and its neighbors?
I think even this goal will not be, realized. I think the answer is quite clear. And China and our neighboring countries have been on the right track to negotiate on the progress of COC and also jointly maintain peace and stability here.
Let's first take a look at this package.
I guess that's it. How are you going to assure us, based on what happened with the disputes, that everything, all of the projects that we're taking part in with China are in good faith?
China can try to reassure our neighbors, and our neighbors also try, to show their goodwill to reassure China, and don't provoke to each other. I think with this administration, of China and also, for instance, Philippines, the high-level leadership level, they have reached a consensus, and they find out after years of cooperation, they both benefited from this kind of reconcile, approach. And I think this kind of cooperation, if we can institutionalize and let more people of two countries recognize, in this way we can make the cake of common interest bigger and bigger. I think that's of the interest of both sides.
Okay. This question coming from the Quora website, very interesting, by someone by the name of Sam A.G. Why does Western media only make fun of the Chinese army and not the Indian army? No experience of modern war, they say, of the Chinese army, insinuating that they are a paper tiger. So why are some Western media, Western journalists called Chinese army paper tiger?
I appreciate the netizen. They remember our Chairman Mao's term of paper tiger, which he coined to describe American militaries in political and strategic terms during the wars, a confrontation period. But whether or not Chinese military is a paper tiger, I think it's quite clear. Since the founding of the PLA, we are very sorry to say we have to engage in a lot of conflict internally and also with the neighboring countries. I think the result quite clear. Yes, Chinese military haven't been engaged in large-scale war fightings for the past 3 decades more. Yeah. The fighting spirit, the capabilities they have, and the achievements they make it quite clear. No matter it's in UN peacekeeping and in escort in the Gulf of Aden, they have widely praised by the international community. I think with this round of reform of Chinese military, under the leadership of President Xi Jinping, and he paid close attention to the military development, and this capability of fighting and deterring and cooperation with our counterparts in the world will absolutely increasing.
Thank you very much, Major General Xu Hui. That was Major General Xu Hui and Commandant of the International College of Defense Studies at the National University of the People's Liberation Army. For more discussion, we're going to leave you with a question. Do you believe there will be a war between China and the U.S.? Please feel free to go to CGTN's Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms to leave your comments. Thanks for watching Ask China.